we stand tall. Words of blades that never fall, debated warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. In the ring we stand tall. Words of blades that never fall, debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean. Spirited, mind sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight by lore. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight by lore. Dive in deep and search for more. In the ring we stand tall. Words are blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean. Spirited minds sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena there's no chance to escape the vibrant lore. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Heard. Will be heard. Will be heard.
Spartans! What is your profession?
What is going on, everybody? We're back at it with another show, another live, another stream. Of course, you know where you're at. You're at a Spartan. It's you know where I am your host, the Spartan, aka Peter. What is going on, everybody? Tonight we have a show of a show, and our first one is in. My man from the UK is in the house. What's going on, my man? So I know this is gonna maybe a little sensitive topic for some people. Hey, Mariana, what's going on? But this is a question we need to ask ourselves tonight because could be a little bit a weird subject for a lot of people because it's something that people don't usually talk about. And this subject is going to be married life, the pros, the cons, and the real. We hear about what people do in their marriage life and how there is. But do we actually know fact to you're actually in that situation? One thing I will say off the bat is every marriage life is different. What is one marriage is different. All right, Paul, take your time, my man. So everybody's marriage is different versus the next person. So we gotta keep that in mind. It's not the same as everybody else's. So, by that said, I don't want this to turn into a argument or a screaming match or anything like that. But everybody's marriage is different. For example, I'm gonna use a couple of people Paul's marriage versus coach's marriages to somebody else's is not the same. It's unique to their relationship. What works for them works for them. What is the pros of being married? I personally think that a couple of the pros are having somebody in your corner backing you up no matter what. The cons, that is subjective because what is a con for you could not be for me. And what is the real? The real could be multiple things. What you see in a soap opera or a show or TV is not reality. What is reality is what you have and treasure. And that is the question you need to ask yourself. Big time. Because it's everyone is different. But one thing I will say, and I had literally just had this conversation about 30 minutes ago with somebody asking me, hey, what is the show about tonight? And I told him what's going on. And here's the thing. People forget they marry the other. People, rephrase that. People forget when they're married is to continue dating the other house. What do I mean by that? It's very simple. You can be married as long as you can, but if you don't keep putting the effort to put them forward, keep them, number one, you cannot lose the lust, the love, the passion. And that is one of them. Hey, Sean, what is going on, my man? So you need to keep pushing that love. CQ is one of my really good friends, one of my best friends. And he told me a long time ago, I continue dating my wife even now. After married, I think they're married for 20 fucking years, whatever. That is a great point. Keep dating your wife. Or keep dating your husband, whatever it is. And that is, I think, the thing we forget. So, what is a couple of the big benefits of being married? I think the biggest benefit is having somebody in your corner, supporting you no matter what, and calling you out for your shit. But in the same token, does marriage change people and their views? I hate to say this, their views of being free. I personally think no. You can be free in a marriage no matter what. Yeah, you have different responsibilities, but you have a family now. But it doesn't mean you're lock and key behind closed doors. Doesn't mean you have to get permission for every little thing you do, but you have to keep the other person in mind. So that is the biggest thing I think. Some things can be just, and Greg said, some of it does. And Mario said it depends on everybody. Everybody is different, and of course, like I said earlier when I first started opening the show, every marriage is little different. You cannot compare one marriage versus the other. Like I can use my parents' example. My parents' marriage couldn't compare to his friend's marriage or my mother's friend's marriage. But you have to keep in mind. I know they always say, and this is where I get in a lot of arguments, is you always want to put your kids up forward. I disagree with that. Put your wife or husband up forward because I explained to you why. Because putting them front and forward, your kids are going to eventually get old, move out, start their own families, and so on. So you need to put her up front because she's going to be the one with you at all times. You can disagree, that's fine. All right, we got one comment here, and let's see. Oh man, my wife got lazy when we got married. I ended up doing most of the things. Really, dude? You gonna call your wife out like that? God damn, bro. By the way, dude, I send you the link through Facebook. If you want to join us, you're more welcome to. Same thing, Mariana, to you. I also send you the link on Facebook. You're more welcome to join us. But again, do you really think your wife is lazy? Literally, maybe it's you have a different mindset now, dude. But calling your wife out like that is kind of fucked up, dude. But, and I hear this a lot from a lot of men. I do more now. My wife does. Why don't you sit down and have that conversation with her and see what the problem is? If it is something like that, you cannot really sit there and say that is the issue. And she no goes to no she's no going to know she's in bed sleeping. Oh yeah, of course you're gonna do that shit when she's sleeping, huh? But my point is trying to get to everybody right now is if it's an issue in like in any situation, have a conversation. It's better to have that conversation up front and open versus hiding it behind closed doors. And you're miserable. You don't want to go home. The old saying, happy wife, happy life. I personally don't believe that. But before we move on, let's get this guy in here. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our president. Mr. President, how you doing tonight, my man?
Busy. I have a 5:45 a.m. flight that need to start packing. I'm not even packed yet, but I'm one of those folks. I can't pack too early, so I'm gonna pack pretty much after midnight. And plus, I got to make a couple errands, runs tonight. I gotta have a slide deck ready for my church on Sunday since I won't be there. So just a lot of things. I'm just looking to do ahead of time. So I'm just going to be up all night. We'll take an Uber to the airport around 3, and just call it a day.
Well, I gotta give you credit, Paul. You have so much stuff going on, but you still came to support the show. So
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
say
well,
I want to say thank you to that. That means a lot.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
for sure.
So you're married, man, for how many seasons now?
We are in season 29.
The reason I said season, guys, because Paul doesn't say years; he says seasons, because every season, like according to him, is different. Correct, Paul?
Every season is different, and every season is its own product.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to rely on what came before, it may not work because you're at a different phase in life, different life changes and whatnot. So you have to, and basically, it's about living in the moment, living in the present, not living
Mm-hmm.
on what we did years ago, or even getting too preoccupied with the future that you can't enjoy the present. So it's just a constant state of being. And so for us, it just really takes a lot of stress off because I'm not worried so much about tomorrow or keep reminiscing about the past. I mean, it's good to an extent, but there's a lot of life to live. There's a lot of the world to enjoy in the present, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
be there for that. So I don't, so I tend these days, I don't dwell on that. I'm just happy to be here in life, and as busy and as chaotic my life is, I'm grateful for it. So so all those things are reasons why I have a present I am sort of mentality when it comes to everything, including my marriage.
So, what would you say is the pros to being married?
Well, I mean, as I've been very transparent about my reasons for getting married in these spaces. So again, if you are of a particular religious persuasion, you get sex. So that was a big thing for me. Sex out of marriage was not an option for me. So having sex, not only having sex, but having a partner where you don't have to be tempted in certain ways and whatnot. For me, it was a definitely a big plus of that. Not having to worry about diseases, not having to worry about just a lot of issues that come when you're having multiple partners like that. So that was a big positive for me. The second is just division of labor. It's funny to me how everyone wants to treat marriage different from a corporation. When marriage is essentially it's the first corporation. It's the first entity. Again, depending on your religious convictions or what have you, but the husband and wife is the first corporate entity. And it's funny how everybody can understand and operate in a corporate setting. People can work in a team setting. Everyone understands that there's roles. Everybody understands that there's responsibilities. Everybody understands that there's accountability. But apparently, though, it's like when it comes to marriage, it's like all those rules go out the window. Like I know women who manage large corporate divisions, thousands of people under them, and they can't get along with a guy at home.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand how you can't you can't take the same principles that apply. These are the people that you go for leadership classes, right? You go for Stephen Covey classes, and there's a whole bunch of corporate trainers. I'm having a brain freeze right now. On corporate leadership function and service oriented servant leadership, all those kind of things. People spend tens of thousands of dollars in corporate spaces to go and learn these principles of leadership. But for some reason, when it comes to their house, it's like all that stuff just goes out the window. And I never understood that, because to me, it's the same thing. If you're a team, whether 2-on-2, 2-on-2 sort of situation, 5-on-5, a football team, baseball team, basketball team, everybody understands. that not everybody's going to get equal playing time, right? You have your starters for a reason. If you were good enough, you'd be a starter. You're not. You're on the bench. Everybody knows that the point guard can't play the center position or vice versa. Everybody understands that. Everybody has to have a spirit of cooperation. But again, when it comes to marriage, it's just like it's like foreign language to people. So, but the principles apply. I got a lot more done in marriage, things that I could never have done. I mean, the fact that we're going down to Grenada tomorrow to visit my daughter in medical school, there's no way I don't think I could have did that outside of marriage. Now, I'm not going to be so hard on the definition of marriage per se as some would. I mean, I think if domestic partnerships and other kind of situationships or whatever, even though I won't necessarily equate them to marriage, I'm not saying that those can't be powerful institutions where you can still do a lot as long as the commitment is there and the the cooperation's there. You can still do a lot of things. But you're talking about people who grew up from poverty or poorer situations, broken, where we didn't see a lot of marriage success, and the fact that we're able to normalize. In fact, I'm having arguments with my kids now over what they grew up in normal, so they don't know anything else, and for some reason they don't appreciate it as much as we do. You know what I mean? Like, my kids have never had drama. Like, they never had where mom and dad were separated, or you grew up with your mom and all, like none of that. And for a lot of people, it's like, well, or for a lot of young people, it's like, well, because it's normal, they just sort of take for granted how normal a life that they've had. But nevertheless, though, they've been able to do things. I mean, we basically changed economically our generation based on marriage. So again, what we've been able to do over that period, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefits, but it's like anything else. Anytime where you can work in cooperation, you're always greater by the people working together than people working individually. And so, yeah, I mean, as far as the pros of marriage, yeah, I mean, I can enumerate some of them, quite, a number of them, but children, raising children, having legacy, intimacy, safety, companionship, friendship, all those things have been certainly net positives that yeah, I don't think I could have gotten in any other sort of relationship that morally that I could enter. Like I said, I was not going to have sex out of marriage. So that limited my options. So marriage was certainly almost a necessity for me. More so than just an optional thing. It's like, hey, I think I'll just get married one day. And I recognize I'm not ignorant to the times we're in where, that's not necessary to have sex and those sort of things. But for me, that was one thing. And I'm not a perfect man by any means. I'm no saint. But for me, that it was one of the only options, which was almost a good thing because I had to make it work. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you have too many options, you don't necessarily work as hard as when you only got one thing going, so you better make use of it. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself, lacking.
Before I get coaching, I want to ask you one question. It's a little personal question, and you'll have the right to not answer it or you don't feel comfortable answering it. All right, Paul? Before, when you met your wife, were you both virgins, I assume, because you're how religious you believe you guys were?
She was, I wasn't.
Okay.
But I was celibate. So when I became a Christian, I was celibate, but she was a virgin the entire time.
Okay. Coach, what's going on, my man?
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate it. How you doing?
Doing well, sir. Good to hear you.
All three of us look like we freshly shaved. You got a new haircut, D.
He's growing it back in, but still looks good. You know, I like him when he's tight, high and tight.
I might keep this for a while. I'm thinking.
Good
Go ahead.
shit.
Go ahead, Coach. What you got on this?
What was the initial question?
The question is, first question I want to ask you: how long you been married?
To my wife, 12 years this year,
12 years.
July.
It's your second wife, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
What is the pros of being married, in your opinion?
I don't spend no days by myself. I got somebody I can talk to, laugh with. I mean, somebody can sort of, mind things out about the future, which direction to go and setting up for that, especially now. We talk about, next 5-10 years when she retires. She's going to go till she's 60. And just thinking about that next move in life, downsizing. I mean, just somebody to have those conversations with, somebody to go places
I
with.
100% agree with you because it's great to have that person next to you. So I'm gonna start with you, Coach. The next question is, what is the cons you think of being married?
Con? I don't know.
It can't all be perfect, peaches and cream, and sunshine.
No, I'll say just where I'm at now, not working. My days are 24/7. And her days are sort of limited as far as, at night, by 9 o'clock, she's usually lights out. So I have to squeeze and family time in there, which I don't mind because, my days are, as of now, I wake up 3 or 4 in the afternoon, shower, get ready. She usually prepares something to cook unless I ask for a special request. I make my own breakfast and, whatever time of day I wake up. But I guess when we having discussions and, I'm left-handed, she right-handed, we going in the same direction, but our whole method is different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What else could be a con? Just can't up and go. I don't know. I always have to think about someone else other than myself, which I don't consider a con, but,
But differently.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I can't speak for anybody else's marriage and what could be a con, but I enjoy being around my wife. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
we spend a lot of time talking throughout the day and the week. Con, shit, I don't know. Reminding each other that we got to do something and we both forget. I mean, I don't know, man. We getting old. I guess when you getting old with somebody, I don't know, man. I really don't have too many cons. I let me see. I can't. Con in a marriage? I don't know. We don't really argue that much. I think last time we had a disagreement was like 2 years ago, and I don't even
That's rare,
remember.
isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't even remember what we were sort of going at it about.
Mhm.
But I just grabbed her hand and pulled her close to me and sat her down on my lap, and that was the end of it. And it's probably about 30 minutes. I think I was talking to myself like, man, what am I doing? What? But yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe Paul can have a better answer than me as far as cons, but shit.
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I can't think of cons. I mean, as far as you said, the cons of marriage,
Right.
Mhm.
that doesn't even go together in my view. There is no, like I said, I mean, anything you're able to do together is better. Now, if you're one of these people who, one of those free spirits who wants to be able to go and do as they please, not be accountable. You want to go travel, you want to go to Europe by yourself, you want to go to Vegas, and you're thinking, oh well, I gotta, answer to someone or whatever. I mean, if you think that's a con, then that's on you. But my thing is, I mean, I got married to be with her. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I mean, if I needed to, if I was like, me and some guys, we wanted to go hang out somewhere, like we're gonna go to Comic-Con in a couple weeks.
Yeah, your wife never gave you an issue with that.
Yeah, it's yeah, go for have fun, hang out because she
Even when
realizes
we went
it's
to
it's
New
good.
York,
Exactly. I mean, it's so she understands that, but the majority of the time, I'm with her. So again, if you're not ready for that, if you're not built for that, then yeah, I mean, you can look at it because all this is about perception, right? You can look at it and say, yeah, this is a con. Thinking that but again, if that's not for you, then don't enter it. But for some people, that you still want your freedoms to live like a single person, but have the woman back home. You still may want to have your dalliances, but then still have the stability of the home life. If you're somebody who you want multiple, and some operate that way. You know what I mean? If you have there's cultures that are kind of like that. Caribbean cultures, it's not uncommon for a married man to have women on the side. You go to Europe and France and whatnot, for a guy to have a woman on the side or whatever. So, yeah, but if monogamy is not for you, if you don't think that you're built for it, or some people even say that, well, human beings are not made to be monogamous. You hear that argument sometimes. If that's not for you, then don't do it. But it's certainly for us. I've seen zero con. I've only seen, uh, um, again, as far as from a productivity point of view, um, and just the maturing and the person that I grew into, there's zero con. But I did have a question for Coach though, because I know you choose your words very carefully and everything, and I know you talk about disagreement. But when's the last time you and your wife had a fight? Now, I don't mean physical. I'm not. I'm saying like you're not talking
verbally
to her. She's not talking to
disagreement.
you. You guys are in Cold War. You in the basement. She upstairs. You're not even sleeping in the same bed. Or what? Has that ever happened with you, where you
No,
guys are
that's
just
never happened. That was something, you know, even before I met her, I used to have talks to myself about if I get married, the things that I will accept, things I won't, things that I'm definitely will stand 100% on. And just being in a position where I'm argumentative with a woman is something that I never, ever had to really experience.
Mhm.
And if we had to, so getting married, I don't think we've ever gotten to that space, because she made a pact like, listen, I don't care what's going on. We can't go to bed. Well, we made it together, but I'm glad that she brought this to the forefront. Like, we don't go to bed, sleep. Like early on, I would say this: we used to drive around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, man. Just especially living in Chicago, from where we live, we would drive about 25, about between 40 and 45 miles round trip,
Hmm.
just talking and minding things out. And if we had a disagreement, just sort of talking them out, so that by the time we got home, we could just have a good night.
Mhm.
So as far as a
Before
fight,
we move on with the conversation, let's get our little witch doctor in here. You get a kick out of this, don't you?
You crazy.
All right, Maria. I know you're not married, but you've seen a decent marriage, a good marriage
Mhm.
through your parents. And blah, blah. Give me your opinion as a single woman,
Okay.
the pros and cons in a marriage.
Okay. Uh Pros, in my opinion. When you're married to somebody, you always have somebody that backs you up. Look out for each other. Um, Also being intimate. Um, Also, pros, I will say that I mean, looking and also appreciate each other. But cons, I'm gonna say this. You're gonna think I'm laughing. In-laws, because once you marry a spouse, you marry the family. It depends. Sometimes, because when my parents got married, my mom dealing with her in-laws, and of course they were talking behind her back, brother-in-law, sister-in-law. I mean, my mom told me this when I was growing up. So sometimes in-laws uh kind of, either they love you or they don't love you at all. That's the only con I look at in marriage. I mean, they could be, face forward, be all nice, but then, right behind it, like talking crap behind her back. So I
Okay.
remember that when I was growing up. The only con is in-laws, the way I look at it. And I hate to say it, but I see that when I was growing up. I mean,
Hmm.
it depends. Everybody's different, as I say. So,
All right. So, Paul, the last question I have before we get into real deep into this, the reality of marriage.
Um, you're not
That's
going to
what
get
I
everything you
want.
want.
I'm sorry.
You're not going to get everything you want. Um,
True.
and you're going to have to, at some point, you're going to have to accept the person for who they are. So there's an acceptance component, and again, that if people go in with sort of selfish intent about what marriage is or what they want to, what you want in a wife, and my wife's not going to do this or my husband's going to do this or whatever, and the reality is it's going to be, um, what your intention is. Again, you have to let the marriage sort of grow to what it is, and acceptance is a big part of that. And also, it's not going to be the same. And if you've married long enough, you're going to go through phases of life. So newlywed is a time, kids is a time, having teenagers is a time, menopause is a time. you know I mean, so you got to be ready. Health situations, like, so again, not everything, like everyone has it in their minds, like marriage is a picture, and it's a movie. you know
Hmm.
it moves, it evolves, it's a path that you're on, and you may take detours and things like that. But men sometimes, I know a lot of men, we want things to always be the same. We like consistency, we like regularity, and things not changing. But life does change, and again, your views change. I mean, what you might have thought as a younger person, with age and experience and whatnot, you may think differently. And so if you expect that person that you marry to be that same person, that you're going to be in a you're going to be surprised at that also. Yeah, we used to agree on it, but again, people, you get access to information. There's there's a variety of things. So again, can you evolve with the changes in the individuals? I'm not the same person I was when I got married, and neither is my wife. Can you still love them, and can you still operate? So you got to have some elasticity if you want something long term. But for a lot of people, it's like as soon as someone starts changing, you come to different conclusions or whatnot, or everything was cool when you guys co-signed on everything. But what happens if you voice another opinion or not have a different perspective or whatnot? Can you work with that? So
Coach.
What was the question again?
The reality of marriage.
I don't know. Just having, I don't know, just like Brother Bennett said, just I accept my wife who she is, and I appreciate even more now, just in the time we've grown together.
mm,
I, you know, I had my own little set way of how I wanted a woman to be, but I never dictated to her um, the way she has to be because I knew I was growing and she was too. So I would never had a picture of the expectation of this perfect wife. I hung around my mother and father long enough to know that marriage would never be perfect.
Mhm.
I hung around them long enough. And my father was nothing like me when it comes to being around the house. He worked, he came home, he paid the bills, he didn't do chores, he didn't do anything. He didn't cut grass, he didn't shovel the snow, he didn't do anything. That was all me. So, I understand my role. You know, I like being the, I guess to say, the security guard of the house. I
Mhm.
like that. I've always done that. I check windows, locks, all windows and locks, make sure everything is functioning, cut the grass. I do everything. And, she appreciates her role. My wife likes to cook. I do not complain. I do all the grocery shopping, because I like to be the one going out. Now she does go grocery shopping. I say, get what you want. I do all the, big things, everything outside. She does everything inside. But we both share the responsibility, you know. So the fact that she works hard just to make sure that I'm okay and she put things in place and make sure that if anything happens to her, I'm okay. And vice versa. Especially at this point, and when she says certain things to me like, um, I'm glad I met you, and you know what I'm saying, I appreciate that. It just throws me off sometimes hearing it from somebody. When I hear it from her. But she's gotten different. She's getting older. I've been one telling her slow down. Like, look, just slow down. You don't have to go as fast. She didn't wear glasses. I didn't either when we first met. But now we both in glasses. So I tell her to, just relax herself, and she does the same thing. She sets my appointments, dental. I do the VA, but pretty much anything outside the VA, she sets those appointments. So it's just part of being a team, and I don't know. If anything will happen to her, every time y'all see me, I'll be somewhere else. I wouldn't just sit around and do whatever, but I also wouldn't just be out here running around with every Susie, Becky, and Joan. No, I would be pretty much a loner and just live life to my fullest extent to what she would want me to do
Mhm.
outside of a woman. Because she
Mhm.
always say, "You get away." No, they had to come with at least $500,000
Mhm.
of residual just to. Nobody would. I wouldn't live with nobody. I wouldn't do anything.
All right.
None of that.
Now, Coach, can I ask you again? You don't have to get too personal if you don't want to, but like you said, this is your second marriage.
Hmm.
Did you have these same thoughts when your first marriage ended? That I'm just going to be a loner, or were you at that time? Were you like, I think I may want to get married again? You didn't know it was going to be to your wife, but was the point you were then at the end of your first marriage, were you thinking the same things, or do you think just because of the person that you're married to
New
now,
subscriber.
awesome, that the woman that you have now has changed it to a point to say, nah, I don't think I could do this again, because it seems like, just from the way you talk about her, that she is your person. You know what I mean? Like, she's, like, no one's gonna top this. Whereas I
No,
don't know if you could have said that with your first one, but it just seems like,
no.
so again, if you could think about where you were at the end of your first marriage versus where this is now, a big difference, or were you thinking
The
around the same thing? Like, I don't know if I'll
first
get
marriage,
married.
I was 24. I was
Mhm.
in the military. I was 24. I know I wasn't ready. But I wasn't a bad person. I just didn't put a lot of time and energy into it as and she filed a divorce. I didn't. And when I got divorced, I was like, I want to get married because that's what I knew. My mom and dad were married. My oldest sister was both my oldest sisters were married. Um, and my brother had been married. All of my aunts were married. Pretty much a lot of the older family members were married. So, and that's what I knew. I'll tell you this: my expectations increased. I was looking for certain attributes in a woman. You know what I'm saying? That I knew I wasn't going to bend on. And when I met women, I listened to their stories, and a lot of women were selfish in what they wanted. And I didn't really want a lot. I don't want, I never wanted women to buy me things and do all of these things, but I was more into having those intimate moments. Can we sit outside in the fall weather under a fire? I like to do stuff. I like to ride bikes. I like to go to the park. I like to play ball at the courts and, where you show up at those moments. I like to listen to music, a lot of things. And I'm not closed-minded. I will join in. And the things that I like, she like, and it just worked out. But I had those discussions, like the things we were talking about vetting. I guess that's what I was doing because I had in conversations about money, sex, children, religion, family members. And so I didn't, like I said, I didn't go in with any assumptions. I just received, everything that she gave me. And, she said some things before I could even ask, like, this is what I'm willing to do and want to do. And yeah, man. So it just worked out, man.
Before we move on, let's get our Dr. Time in here, our pain.
I think got a fresh cut too, man.
What's going
Okay, what's going on, my man? Long time, my man. How you been?
Got something stuck in my throat. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? I'm doing all right.
All right. What?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, we
sir.
can hear you nice and clear. So, what do you have on this topic tonight?
Well, I saw your link, and I appreciate you keep sending me the links. It's just a timing issue for sure, but this
Oh, yeah, I
this
understand that.
conversation is something I can handle. You're talking about married life. I feel like I'm an expert.
Oh, so how many years have you been married so far?
38.
38.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, pros and cons?
Well, I don't really have any cons in marriage for me, right? I mean, when you say cons, give me a perspective of what a con would be.
I would say a con is like something that you like.
Well, let me tell you why I'm saying that, right? Because when you get married, right, you go into the union understanding that when you grow together, there's going to be some things you have to fix. I mean, things you have to meld, understandings that you have to grow into. I don't really call those cons, right? I mean, if there was some real cons that really mattered, I probably wouldn't marry the woman I'm married to. That's some of those things you get out of the vetting process. Now, you don't understand everything, but I'm not saying everything was pristine. But when you say pros and cons of marriage, the only con I would see is if, and there's a character thing. If somebody's holding you back from growth, right? And if you don't do that, then that con is eliminated, right? As for me, the only con in the marriage, if you want to call it that, is that you can't have sex with nobody else.
But is that really a con?
Well, yeah. Well, for some people, that's why they cheat.
That's what I said earlier. If you're not built for monogamy, then yeah.
And then, so some people will consider. So here's my thing, and I think this goes to women more than men, because a lot of women don't well, the way they are now, they think being married is a restrictive kind of thing. For men, it's more of a financial and the fact that, marriage laws are upside down. But in a good marriage, right, in any good marriage, there's only one thing that your spouse can't do. Like, for example, especially women who think they're restrictive, you can get a master's degree and be married. You could be a PhD and be married. You could be a doctor and be married. You could do anything you want to do within the confines of the agreement you have with your spouse. The only thing you can't do is give the coochie to somebody else. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Respect your husband, and he respects you. So to me, when I look at it, it's just the bottom line thing with me and my wife. I can't, you know what? It's funny. When I talked to her, I said, I can't remember the last time I told you no about something. Not that she asked for a lot of stuff, but the things she asked for, are never outside of the bounds. Right? And things I asked for, it's not outside of the bounds. So I'm not trying to say it's pristine because you're growing together. I've learned a lot of being with a woman for so long. And that's another thing. I tell all the people who are not married, they give me some shit. You've been married so long, you don't know what's going on. I said, I've been up close and personal with a woman for 38 years. And when she said I do, she never turned in her woman card. She's been a woman every single day since we've been married.
And that's what the ultimate picture is, I think.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I had to learn some things and how to do that. So, I had to understand her nature, how to talk to her. All these things, it was growth. And I don't consider those cons. You just got to grow together.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a jet stream now. After 38 years, we're in that jet stream pocket, man. Kids are grown, and that kind of stuff, man. We just cuddle together all the goddamn time. That's it. But I mean, if you want to know something else, so the pros are, if you believe in a covenant marriage, it's a pro. Right. Sometimes, you grow together, and she has her friends that she can, she needs to get away with me. Our house is big enough so we don't have to be up under each other. She still works. She works for the church, so it's a labor of love. I'm retired, so I'm enjoying it. I do what I want. And she kind of does what she wants. She has a couple of lady friends who are up there in age. They do a lot of things together. And it is where we are, Our kids are grown, like I said, and they're doing their thing. So we're proud of them. I just want a grandkid. I don't have any of those. I don't have any of those. That's the one thing I really want.
The man's question, RP. I'm not trying to be a smart ass here. Are you able to run around and chase those rugrats if they're coming around?
I told my daughter that if she gave me a grandkid, I don't, she wouldn't have to worry about child care. The kid could stay with me. I ain't doing nothing. During the day, you pick them up. You have your husband pick them up. That's not going to be because that's what they worry about. How much it costs for childcare when I'm not working, this and that. She worries about that stuff.
Yeah.
I said I'd rather you be married and have a kid so both of y'all can work together. But me and the wife, once we're retired, what else are we going to be doing? You know what I'm saying? We'll take out trips and stuff like that. But my real thing is, it's not going to be forever either. If I live long enough and my kids here for 3 or 4 years before preschool, we could save them some money. I wouldn't mind doing that. I'd be so happy. It ain't going to wear out. It'll keep me young chasing the damn kids around.
All right, let's get our UK boy in here. What's going on, my man?
Hello, fellas. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Doing all right, sir.
Got a lady on there too.
It sounds weird coming from me. I'm from the UK. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, brother.
How's everyone doing?
The first question: how long you been married so far?
13 years.
13 years. The pros and cons, in your opinion?
Everything.
All right.
It's a joke. Everything's a con.
Down for me,
It's all a
man.
con. Marriage is a con. It's a joke. Well, I did explain a lot of it in the chat, if you read it.
I saw something, but give me your a little brief.
Well, when we got married, she got we moved to this flat. We got married, and she just sat on their laptop 24/7. I did all the cleaning, cooking, running a bath, making sure she takes her meds, doing all the washing, well, clothes basically, making the bed, basically all the main things. If we get what I'm saying. The good things, I miss going for a walk. But being stuck where we are now, with the problem, if you read some of the comments I put, being stuck here, because of the missus having heart problems, the hills don't help. And we live in a second floor flat, which we had no choice at the end of it. Plus with the problems we've got with all the neighbours around the area, we just don't go on. We just don't go out. And also what's going on in the UK at the moment. She doesn't feel safe going out there.
But her again, guys. You guys would marry. Jump in, please, and help me out here a little bit. But her heart problem is not her fault.
No, she was actually born with a hole in her heart.
Okay.
They patched it up. She had Freddie, which was the firstborn, not my son. He lived with his father up in Wales, which kind of weakened it. Then she had another child, my child with her, who now lives with her sister, which made it even worse. Because when she was actually fully pregnant. We were walking miles. When she was heavily pregnant. But yeah, it just got worse. Then we moved here. Depression set in. Problems with neighbours. Eating a load of junk food, as you lot would say it. She's got a load of fat around her heart, which makes her not want to do anything else either. Because every time she tries to do anything, she just gets short breath. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to jump in because you have more of it.
Well, I guess again, the fact that you're mentioning is, again, thank you for sharing some of that. I guess if there was going to be a hard part, and again, we haven't, me, our painting coach, I don't know if we necessarily experienced a lot of this yet, but
if I could have one of you guys on Facebook, I can message you and get some information. Might help try and get her a bit more mobile.
So yeah, so I mean, dealing with a severe health crisis, I'm not gonna, be ignorant and say that doesn't strain a marriage. You know what I mean? I mean, again, we haven't, we've been, relatively healthy all these years. But what if you had a situation where your wife couldn't take care of herself at all, and basically, it was almost like she wasn't a wife to you anymore, at least the way you thought, that she simply couldn't give you. She couldn't, be there for you like that, but she needed like round the clock type of care. You may think that, you're definitely missing something, or that you are, like I said, it changed to something else. You became her guardian, or vice versa. If your husband can't move around, he's chair bound, he's bed bound, he can't do things. You have to feed him and treat him almost like a baby. You may feel, and because you are bound, again, the vows, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health. What happens if you hit one of those things, and do you, can people handle that? Will you stay? If in fact that happens, would your feelings for the other person change, even if you didn't want to? Would they go from more or less romantic to more platonic, or maybe like
my feelings towards her wouldn't change. I owe her a lot. Yeah. When we first got together, I was going through a dark stage where I was drinking. I bought a car and I was going to drive it off a beachy head. All right. And she actually saved me from doing that. She stopped me from doing it. Hence why me and her are now together. We've been together for years.
Right.
But I was going through a dark stage in my life, and she stopped all of that, and she changed my life.
Right.
She made me so happy. I stopped drinking. as I said, there's not much to say without going too deep into it.
Right. But could there be a situation where if you're no longer like because again, whatever it is, if you're like no longer sexually attracted to her, let's just say that, would that change then
No.
said, okay. So
No, it wouldn't.
would you still be sexually attracted to her, or would that?
Yes,
like I said,
I am.
Okay.
I have been for over 13, nearly 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's never changed. The way I feel about her has never, ever changed. I still find her sexually attractive from the first second I laid eyes on her.
Mm-hmm.
Even to this day. I promised myself I'd never be like my father. That's the easiest way to say things. My father is a good man. Because he helped me and her out with money. He helped us get this flat. He actually put the main deposit down for this flat. But it was the fact of I'd never be like my father. In other words, going around with different partners.
Yeah. Before we move on, let's get JT in here. JT, my man, what's going on, my man?
Hey there, what's up?
I'll be right back.
Long time, man. How you been?
I've been all right. I just thought I'll pop in for a few minutes.
Yeah. So, first question. Couple questions. Number one, you're married, right, man?
Not no more.
Okay. How long did your marriage last then?
8 or 9 years.
And yeah.
Well, I mean, legally it was 12 years, but together it was about 8 years.
Okay. In your opinion, pros and cons.
The pros of being married is the stability and the consistency. You know, being out in the rat race, that stuff is for the birds. I don't know who can do this, especially the older you get. It becomes pointless. It doesn't mean as a man, as you get older, you still don't see a lady and you be like, hey, but it just ain't worth. It ain't worth the headache. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just ain't worth what comes with it. So that was kind of some of the pros for it. My marriage is a little bit different because I should have never been married to begin with, but I think some of the cons of it is I don't know if it's really a con, but you can't be selfish anymore. I mean, you can, but if you actually are trying to do the right thing, you can't be selfish anymore because it's not about you; it's about the unit. It's more so, you hear a lot of football players talk about the team, and actually football players are going to throw up when they talk about the team because they're getting paid all this money and it ain't got nothing to do with no team. But like when you're married, though, it's literally about the health and function of the actual unit. So one of the cons is you can't be selfish anymore because we are inherently selfish people. We want things our way, when we want it, how we want it, and we don't want to compromise that. And that's a lot to give up. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. That's a lot to give up, that you got to now put that aside and think about the other person. It's the ultimate act of service is being married.
All right. Any guys, anything you want to jump in and read for?
Yeah, but but to his point, again, depending on your perspective, you might not even call that selfish. I mean, or a con per se. To be selfless, you could almost say it's a virtue. But again, there's always that balance, right? Even scripture, it says, you love your neighbor as you love yourself. There has to be a point of self-love to an extent, but it should then also be able to extend out to other people. So again, when you are able to think of those higher, and again, I think a lot of it also has to do with your goals, right? So even in the team concept, the goal is to win the championship or the game, whatever it is. So it's also got to be tied, like, why am I submitting, or why am I relinquishing in this thing? Because hopefully you're thinking there's something better, or that there's going to be some benefit down the line from me doing this. We're going to be in a much better position years later, especially when the kids are gone and you think about, what do you have left? A lot of people stay together for the kids. But then once the kids leave, then it's like, well, what's the quality of your relationship once the kids get out? do you guys still like to be around each other, or was the kids the only reason for you guys sticking with it so long? You know what I mean? So I think that it's those deposits that you're making throughout, those acts of selflessness. You're hopefully that you're growing something over time that you can see the fruit of later. But again, all that depends on, again, the person that you're with, if they're willing to also be selfless in the process.
Yeah, on just that point about the kids, though, I think one of the major mistakes that married couple make when they have children, they center their lives around their kids. It's a big, huge mistake. You have to center the life around your marriage, your relationship. Yeah, if that's strong, then the kids get taken care of. I had that conversation with my wife early on. It's just a little the buzzword that a lot of women use, and a lot of men let them get away with, because they like to say "my kids" a lot.
Yeah,
My kids this, my kids that. You gotta say, yo, they're our kids, And so I've corrected my wife a lot early on about that. Hey, my priorities the kids. I said, your priority is our relationship, just like mine is with you. We take care of that, the kids get taken care of. And so one of the things that we made sure is that we know we only rent them for a while. And one of my daughters still live with us, which is cool because she's stacking some bread. But we like being around each other. We hang out, man. We do our thing, So we never lost.
Speaking of the my kids thing, I just want to, my grandparents, my dad's parents, they never because they had all boys, which includes my father. They had 5 boys, and my grandfather told me the story a long time ago. They got rid of the term "my" when it comes to the kids. You know what I mean? And so they were my father and my uncles. They were just always referred to as the boys. That's it. They were just referred to. And I got my first dose of this a few years. Well, my grandmother has since passed on, but I remember my grandmother and grandfather. I was over there visiting one evening, and around dinner time, that was on purpose. I went around dinner time for purpose. But I walked in the house, and I did not know my grandmother and grandfather was in a full-blown war. When I walked in that house, I had no idea. First of all, I did not know while I was sitting there eating and talking and laughing with them that they were in a full-blown war right in front of me. Had no clue. And then my grandfather kind of kept he'd come in the room, leave the room, come in the kitchen, leave the kitchen, come in the kitchen, leave the kitchen, which is attached to the den. And then finally, around the 5th time he left out, she picks up the phone. I'm just talking to her, just right in my mouth. She picks up the phone. She says, "Excuse me." She picks up the phone. I don't know. She calls one of my uncles, and she says, "If you don't come get your daddy, I'm gonna put him in the pine box tonight." And hung the phone up. And then started talking to me. I was like, whoa, wait, what just happened? You know what I mean? And she goes, "Oh, nothing." And went back to talking. And about 5 minutes later, my dad and 3 of his brothers show up. My grandfather he's coming out of the back, and because he doesn't know that they've been called. And my uncles and them show up, and they're standing at the door. One of my uncles is standing at the door with my grandfather's coat. And he looks at it, and they go, "Dad, Mama said you got to go for a ride." Now, I'm standing. I know what the phone call said. Grandma didn't say nothing like that, but I know that's interpreted. My grandfather blows past them, looks at her, and he goes, "You called the boys on me?" Not my boys, the boys. You called the boys. And these are men in their 50s and 60s now. You called the boys on me. That was the most hilarious thing I'd ever seen in my life, because I did not know. Well, I mean, just going back to the my kid, and me having one point of reference of how they addressed, even in adulthood, how they addressed their kids. Right. My grandfather he looked at me like I could do something about it. And he was like, "You see what she just did to me, Grandpa? Don't put me in the middle of this. I don't even know what's going on. Right. I don't even know what's going on. I just showed up with some food. Next thing I know, you being thrown out and escorted out by your sons. I don't know nothing." But
all right, guys. So before we move on, let's hit our take a little small commercial break and come back in 35 minutes, so we can go to the bathroom. We fill our drinks and everything. And I got some videos in the next half I want to go over with you guys. Sounds cool?
All right.
All right.
In the ring we stand tall. Words are blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean. Spirited minds sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena there's no chance to escape the vibrant lore. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Heard. Will be heard. Will be heard. In the ring we stand tall. Words of blades that never fall. Debate the warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. In the ring we stand tall. Words of blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean. Spirited mind sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena, there's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena, there's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more.
All right, guys, we're back at it again. So our show is presented by Greek Orthodox Church. This from Strasbourg. They're having a festival at the October 10th, 11th, and 12th. Please go check them out if you're in the Strasbourg area. It will be great music, great food, great everything. Let's get these guys back in here. So first, let's get my team back in here. All right, guys, we're back at it again. All right. So we went over pros and cons. Let's go over some videos I have set up for you guys, and I wanted to get your opinion. We'll go from Paul to Coach to Mariana to our Payne and our UK guy. Let me get the first video up and running. Here we go.
married at an age where they actually are able to grow up with one another because your wife shapes you and that makes you both better people. When I married my wife, I just turned 24 and she was 20. We've spent our lives growing up together, right? I mean, now I'm 38 and she's, 35 and that's a long time to spend, and half her life, basically we've spent together. And that means that you grow and you change and you have experiences and then you bring kids into the world and that radically changes you even more than just the marriage. People aren't getting married at an.
All right, guys. Paul, you want to go first?
Well, I mean, I obviously, I agree with that. I mean, there is a lot of growth and change that happens in a person, but again, everything's conditional, right? I mean, you got to be in a good situation. You got to be with someone who is going to allow that. As I said earlier, your relationship, you're going to need some elasticity to allow for that growth to happen. If you're look, marriage can be hell. If you have a kind of marriage, marry the wrong person. That's hell on earth. So male or female. So again, we're I guess we're talking about it in an ideal situation, but I'm even to this day I'm still pro. If my daughters got married, I mean, now I'd be happy with that. I mean, but you see these days people are getting married later, and I don't know if that's necessarily to their benefit, because I've always thought, like, the older you are, now again, I'm not saying money isn't important, economics isn't important, but people get married at 30, 35, 40, and I'm like, have you lived too much on your own independently to be in a marital situation? When you're young like that, I mean, when you have that interdependence, is that a better situation to be in? And especially with the economics of today, with things being so expensive, how a lot of young people are going to make it, I still think marriage is a viable option. If you guys are making 40, 50K each, what if you did pool your resources together, especially if you live in the tri-state area? I mean, me and Arpane, we from Jersey, you guys are from VA, so you guys know what the cost of things are. If you can get your oars rolling in the right direction, 100K base is a decent floor. But if you want to wait until you make 100K already before you get married, I don't know if that's necessarily going to work out in your favor either, because then it's going to be like, well, look, it's my money. So yeah, so young people getting married, I still think it's still viable. They probably going to need still a lot of support. If you're the parents, certainly give them family support if they need it. But yeah, I see. I would never say to my daughters, "Oh, well, you're too young to get married." Age has nothing to do with it. I think it's just your maturity level. And again, can you work with somebody as you're building and put something together? So yeah, I mean, young marriage, I'm still an advocate of, and versus just spending your 20s just kind of sowing your wild oats, and then then you find yourself you can't pair with anybody.
All right, Coach, you're up if you're there. All right, I think Coach's not back yet. Mariana, you want to take this?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Shapiro kind of talked a little fast, kind of throw me off a little bit.
He talks like this.
Yeah, like damn. I'm like, because of course, when you marry the person, it will change eventually. I mean, okay, once like everything, as years go by. First, once you get married, you have children, and for me, for me, when I was growing up, it was like a roller coaster ride. What I see from my parents, it wasn't, how you say, it wasn't perfect. I hate to say it, but it's more like for survival. But I know that once my mom was having kids, I was the firstborn. Then my sister was born. Then my third sister, and then my father get very frustrated. He comes home, and then the baby when the third child was born, the baby cried all night. I mean that's part of marriage, unfortunately. But my father came able to sleep easily, but my mom has to put the baby to sleep. I mean, it wasn't, from observing it as a child. I mean, it wasn't easy for her. All he does, work in a 9 to 5 job, but he also was maintaining at the time, bake, working as a baker, make sure, the business run, but he wants to sleep. And then he gets very cranky about it. But of course, it's not going to be, perfect marriage, but it's also, um, from what I was growing up, I mean, not to be negative, Nancy, because everybody's marriage is different, as I say. Um, my father complained too much to his siblings, to his parents, and then my mom told me about this. I say, because it's not good for a child to get all that negative vibe coming from that. They were saying, like, I was really annoyed. I remember, I never forget. I remember I had to defend my mom. My cousin was saying terrible things about my mother. Oh, your mom doesn't cook, doesn't clean. I said, what do you mean? And I say, she does. And then all my siblings had to step in, on her defense. And this is why, and I confront my father. I said, why in the world you tell everybody the problem? I say, if you have a problem with your marriage, you should went talk to a therapist or talk to a priest or whatever the case. You don't need to like instigate and then, cause everybody get involved. That's what I didn't like. And I kind of like distanced myself from, my father's side of the family when I was growing up. I mean, it was difficult. Um, but I didn't like that. That's not something that was solid. What I saw. My father was complaining about everything. Like, it's come on. Like, if you have a problem, you need to like talk it out. But he just come over there complaining, and telling his sister, his brother, like everything. And there was no need for that. And it's for me to see that as a kid growing up, and then as years go by, I'm like, this is crazy. So I didn't understand it, but I know that I observe and I say, look, somebody, they work it out. I see other couples have, better marriage to work it out, but you don't need to blur out and tell everybody your business, because that's where the problem cause. So that's, this is my, because this is how I was growing up. So that's all I could say.
All right. Arpain, you're up.
Marianne, how you doing? Are you married
No.
now, or did that stop you? Just stop you from getting married? That put a sour taste in
In
your
a
mouth?
way, yes, because all that trauma that I was growing up, and that kind of
Yeah.
affect my decision. So
I mean, it makes sense because, but let me also tell you, these days, I don't know how good, even if you have a good marriage, a lot of people don't want to get married these days either.
mhm.
So it don't even have to be trauma. Maybe that's your situation. Well, my kids talk about marriage. My oldest was close. We had a family dinner and all that, but she never was close like that again. Now she's in her early 30s. I was hoping to get her married, but you can't force those things. But anyway, I guess back on the married young. Well, I didn't get married. I was 29 when I got married. My wife's 2.5 years younger, but we got engaged when I was like 26, and took a year. Maybe I was a little early. Maybe I was a little younger, 20, 28 or something like that, when we finally got married. So I think getting married young is the way to do it, because no matter what, just life, if you wait until your 30s and stuff like that, you get stuck in your ways, both men and women. You're used to a certain kind of life, and blending yourself for somebody else after that much time is a lot more difficult. So if you're in your early 20s, let's just say 24, 25, you're a lot more flexible with the person you're with. You're growing, like you said, like Shapiro said, you're growing up together. The benefit for my kids was when we had our kids, we were a little older. Well, my oldest, I was 30. I think I was 34 with my oldest. I was 41 with my youngest. They were like 7 years apart. So our house was pretty stable. Our house was pretty stable by then. So they didn't grow up with us. We were already grown. So, but younger is much better. And I'm an advocate for that, but it's hard to convince young men or women to get married early because everybody's telling them enjoy their 20s. They're telling women to, especially women, right? Men, they tell men do it by force because they don't have no money. Women don't like men with no money. And so it kind of forces you to be in your 30s for both parties for different reasons, I think, And then it's a catch-22 because when a guy gets into his 30s and he looks for a woman, if she had a roaring 20s, you don't really want her that much, because you still want some kind of virtue. So it's like a big catch-22 going on.
Well, Arpain, I mean to cut you off, but in my case, like I was ready to get married, in my 20s, but women weren't ready to get married.
Well, I mean, yeah, you'll find that. You just gotta, no matter what, you gotta find the right person, right? In a marriage, you gotta find a person who's on your level. So even though in your experience you couldn't find one, but there was a woman out there who might want to get married, you just didn't meet her.
True.
So that's just the way that is. And I think in my day, maybe it was easier to ferret out marriage-minded people. Right. In 87, I got married in 87. People got married back then, so it's harder to find marriage-minded people on both sides of the aisle today. Right. That's the one thing that's no doubt. We can't even argue about that. So that's where that's at. That's where that's at. So when I go around telling them, I'm ended here, when I go around telling people I've been married for 38 years, so some people say, man, that's a lifetime already. Right. So. Yeah, and it makes you feel like a unicorn when it shouldn't be. When it shouldn't be. But there you go.
Yeah. All right. Because Coach and Greg is not back, I'm gonna play the next video really fast.
Yeah, but before we go on, Mariana, did you have any questions for us? Just from our perspective as married men, in anything you would want to know? I wanted to give you certainly an opportunity if you wanted to ask something.
How do you? This is crazy. God, I'm trying to think of something because I know my parents were married young. They were like, my father was, I think, 25 and my mom was 23. And of course, believe it or not, kind of she want to leave because she know that where she was living, like she leave the country or she not gonna survive. And she lived in the village. This is in the old country. And she even say, please take me to America. I don't want to be here. And so, after that, and of course, I had to hear the stories because I travel overseas. This is like over 20 years ago. And I didn't like what I hear, and I'm sorry, as I say, I apologize to be negative and because it was very rough to watch this as a kid and hear this. I remember my aunts, this is from my mother's side. According to them, and they even my mom don't remember, but they told me they beat the crap out of her. Two of
Wow.
my aunts beat the crap out of her to force her not to get married. They beat her up till they tell her, "Oh, don't marry him," which is my father. He's the only, my only biological parent that's still alive. And I didn't know about anything about that. I had so much anger and rage inside because I didn't realize my mom had that much abuse. Um, and then, sorry, just took me back.
It'll
Yeah,
happen.
it just,
That's YouTube for
yeah,
you. It'll make
because
you
I remember I
remember.
was 20 years old and, like now, to remember that at the time. And I'm like, This is I was wondering. I mean, my mom was very sweet. She hugged everybody from my father's side of the family before she, left to America and everything. But the only thing is, what I want to ask: how do you know that God put somebody to before you pick that person? Because I know that sometimes you can't even like question God, but to know that this is the reason for this person that comes to your life, to make sure, because I know it was like a roller coaster ride when I was watching and observing when I was growing up. um it was difficult. um and I didn't like that. That was not like, I know it was more like a survival from when I was growing up, but it was, to hear all that before my mom came to this country. I said, wow, she had a heart. And then they suggested her, oh, you should marry this guy. Some other guy had some kind of gift shop and all this other stuff. And I am like saying to myself, you have two, I'm going to say, two of my aunts. I don't even like talk to them as much because they live overseas. And to have the audacity to beat the crap out of her. And I asked my mom about it, and I said, oh, I don't remember. And I'm like, I said, Mom, you don't remember your sisters beat you up that bad? Like, and I say, I had to drop the conversation, let it go. So it was, for me, it's like,
What's the home country, Mariana?
this was in
What,
Serbia. Yeah.
Serbia. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Bennett. You want to get that one about whether you ordain God and all that? I have a secular answer.
Mine
for that,
may sound a little bit secular also. You may not like my answer. I think the idea that has perpetuated modern society, and in particular church, that somehow God chooses your spouse. It doesn't have a lot of biblical warrant.
Okay.
There's a couple, sure, you can always go to the Bible and find a case. So you had even one of the prophets, God told him to go marry a prostitute. But the general norm of how people chose mates, it was based on families.
Okay.
It was based on culture. You had betrothals, meaning your spouse was picked out before you were born, or even shortly after you were born. It's only in relative short human history, in recent history, where the idea of romance became a thing in terms of selecting a mate. And then people try to then marry religion or God to the process. Well, God must have someone for me. And then, but think about the consequences of that. Let's say if it doesn't work, right? So you believe God put this person in your life, right? And then you realize that, well, maybe God didn't put that person in my life. Well, if that person wasn't your one, then you weren't the one for that person.
Okay.
And then the person that they were supposed to be with, they're not with that person.
Yeah.
And then your person is out there somewhere and you're not with them. So you start to see this chain reaction of the fabric of time and space getting torn up because two people decided to be together that God didn't want to be together. I think ultimately at the end, I think God gives, parameters in terms of how to be a wife and how to be a husband. It's up to you to make it work. I didn't know necessarily that my wife was the one when I married her, but she fit enough. And again, over time, it became more apparent that I'm grateful to God that she came into my life. But could I say that God put her there? I have no idea because I don't have the mind of God to know that.
Yeah.
But I do have direction in terms of what's a good husband, and she has direction on what's a good wife. I think too many people, women especially, it's been fed to for years. Oh, my man's out there. He's gonna show up. And I think it's created in a lot of women a laziness because they think they don't have to work, that God's going to send them someone who's perfectly fitted for them and they can just be who they are.
Yeah.
Rather than answering the question, what do I need to do to be a wife?
Mm-hmm.
He who findeth a wife findeth a good thing in favor with God. Are you a wife before you got married? But you just think that God's just going to put, with all your issues, with all your selfishness, that God is going to put someone in your life that's just going to be all about you and you don't have to do anything for him. He's just going to love you no matter what. He's going to take you as you are, and you don't have to worry about anything. And I'm sorry, marriage, does take some intentionality. It takes some effort. And so, certainly sorry to hear about, your parents and the squabbles and things that they did, but it's just, it just re-emphasizes the point. Yeah, maybe your father shouldn't put the business out there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't know what conversations they may have had. He may have tried to talk to her.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it gets to a point where, look, if you can't get through, then out of frustration, you may go to friends or people around to say, hey, these things aren't getting done or what have you. But both people have to be committed to it. Now, again, I went through my time where I didn't feel I had my wife because, like I said, I had 3 kids in 4 years, 2000, 2001, and 2003. We had 3 kids.
Wow.
And I was feeling the hey, what about me sort of thing. Remember, I got married because I wanted sex. And before we had kids, I had it basically anytime I wanted it.
Yeah.
Well, now I can't anymore. And quite frankly, sex is the last thing on her mind because she's got 3 kids under 3 years old. Nursing one, trying to keep another one out of trouble, and so on and so forth. So I had to develop an understanding of kind of where she was. And rather than complaining about why I wasn't getting my sexual needs met, maybe start thinking more about how can I help to maybe alleviate some of the pressure so that we can, have something. And since then, it's never been like it was, before we had kids. We never got back to the freaky days. We worked out a deal, and when menopause hit, that was a whole nother thing. It just, and we had to work out something from there. So it's always going to be a work. I mean, God can put you two together. That is no guarantee that it will last. And I think people have to be intentional about, again, what are you doing to make sure that, that a marriage can work and be successful. So the whole God thing, I like I said, I think it's, quite frankly, especially in the Black community, I think it's poisoned a lot of people, especially women.
Let me add something to what you just said about the God thing. I don't think men challenge women. Women say it more than men do. I think almost exclusively. The one fault I have, men don't challenge women when they say that to them. I would challenge. I said, listen, you sitting down here waiting for God to pick you a mate. You're going to be waiting a long time. That's not how you do it. And then I would go to what Mr. Bennett said. Listen, you got to grow, attract what you want. But don't be sitting down here on your laurels. But that's the one thing. With me and the wife, it wasn't like ordained by God, but it was a different feeling when I met her from the beginning. I mean, we were engaged within 5 months. We didn't really date. We went right from going out to courting. The very first time I went to pick her up to go out, I met her parents. So they sized me up, and that night we went to I'll never forget. I went to Chi-Chi's. It used to be Chi-Chi's back then, Mexican place. And I said, listen, I told her I don't want another girlfriend. I want to build something with a person. I didn't say let's get married. I just said, listen, I don't want another girlfriend. I said I want to build something that's lasting. And she was down for that. So we went right from that to courting. We got engaged 5 months later. We got married like maybe a year later. And I'm so old school. My father-in-law paid for my wedding. He paid. They paid. I mean, I'm on tradition. Nobody getting that done now,
Yeah.
man. Forget it. They paid for my wedding, all the
Mhm.
trappings, man.
You know,
It was
one thing
something.
I just
So
realized from talking to you guys is, at least from you and Paul, you guys have one common denominator, and also my boy CQ, some other people I know. Everybody whose marriage has survived always got engaged under 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I talked about that on the show, a few shows ago, which I got, folks weren't necessarily agreeing with me too much about it, but yeah, I think if both of you are marriage minded, at the very least, you shouldn't be with anybody over 6 months, and at least the conversation hasn't come up.
I agree on that.
Or I mean, I'm like, what have you been talking about? So that's 180 days. I mean, what have the discussions been like? If you're saying, oh, it's too soon, I don't even know what you guys are doing.
Yeah, what you talking about? Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, what you talking about? Sports? You're talking about the politics or
wrestling?
What do you wrestling? I mean, what are you talking about?
Greg said Greg looked like he was going to say something.
I did. I said you guys were saying in under 6 months, of getting married.
Well, at least, I would say at least with you guys going in that direction. It should be pretty laid out, Because I got married in 10. So again, from first date to marriage was 10 months from start to finish.
10 months.
But I knew I was going to marry her after about 2. I gave my ring. This is May, so 5 months I gave the ring. And the rest was just planning for the wedding. Now, look, I could have just went to the courthouse personally. That it was up to me. Like I said, I went down to the courthouse over the summer. I had to renew my dog tags. At the township, there were 2 weddings that was going on. There was a Latino couple, and these guys couldn't have been no older than 21 years old. And the witness was, they had them aunties, them hot 40-something Latino aunties in the red dress or whatever. So she was there. That was the witness. And then you had another couple. They were an Asian Indian couple, or maybe Guyanese or something like that. But they might have had like 8 to 10 people there. They were getting married by one of the local officials in the township or whatever. Cost of the wedding license is $150. Here, pay at the counter.
That's nice.
Here, they go into the courtroom or whatever. Boom, done. And I just felt so good about it. It was like, I guarantee those marriages will probably last longer than the ones who want to drop $50K on a wedding. You know what I'm saying? So I think that if you are, if that's what you want, I wouldn't mess with anybody for no more than 6 months without some serious movement towards that. But I've seen people dating 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then you be asking them, so when y'all getting married, it's like, we just dating for now. I'm like, you're wasting your best years,
especially the women.
I mean, like what? Like I said, y'all, especially if you 30 plus, you don't have time to be wasting.
Oh, I go on a crusade. I tell women, I said, man, listen, this guy don't want to marry you. I mean, 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, if you're 21 and then you with somebody for 4 years and you're 25 now, okay, that's too long. But if you're 28 and you're in a 5, 6 year relationship, you don't get that. Now you're blowing those prime years. And then the trauma that comes after you break up,
and
so
you hear every excuse in the book. It's like,
a lot of women go through that.
Every excuse in the book, or it's like, well, marriage, that's just, and then this whole thing of, well, that's just the government, that's just paper and
you know how often I hear that, bro?
Yeah, it's just all these excuses that they come up with, but just face the it's just fear based. So yeah, I think a lot of folks, if the intent is there, you move with the quickness. Especially when you found somebody who, is checking off at least the important boxes. They don't like, what are you going to learn? And again, I'm not even a big advocate of cohabitation. I don't know about you, Arpane, but What's your thing? You know, living together for like a couple years before marriage? Nah, man. I mean,
no, we living together. My wife had a curfew. Let me tell you, I kept her out all night. One night, and I didn't even get lucky that night, right? So we come in, it's like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the lights out. Her mother and father was sitting on the couch. And they might as well have those pitchforks. Remember that old picture with the pitchfork? Man, they laid into me, man. And then I looked around for my wife, my fiance at the time. She was nowhere to be found, man. They're ripping me a new one, you know. I'm saying, oh my God, you know. I'm saying, wow, you know. So that's how
and
that
you weren't
was.
a kid either. That's the thing. I mean, you're like 27, 28 at the time. So.
I haven't been acknowledged like that by an older elder in years. In years, man. So I'm like humble. I'm just talking about humble pie. I'll never forget it. And that never happened again.
Gotcha. No, I'm sorry, Pierre. I didn't mean to derail. You said you want to play another video, so you can go ahead and do that.
That's fine. We got time for one last video, and then we're gonna get into our final thoughts.
Okay.
Where is it? Here we are.
In the West, because we're very immature, we think that the purpose of a marriage is the happiness of the people who are involved in the marriage, the husband and the wife. And that's just not the purpose of marriage at all. The purpose is long-term facilitation of their psychological and spiritual development and the establishment of an environment that's beneficial to children. That's a responsible way of thinking about it. And so we need to have a serious conversation about what that means. In the West, because we're very immature.
Harper, you want to go first? Because I know you already. I can see this. You know, your gears grinding. In a bad way.
You know, no. The point really is, I'll be real short. I mean, we got married because I wanted children, and that kind of stuff. But the happiness part. I mean, I got to. He said a couple of key words in there I'm kind of missing. But the real purpose of marriage for us was to have children together within wedlock and raise them to be productive citizens and stuff like that. So when we had our first kid, because it took us some time to have our kids, and the second one took us 7 years to have the second one, and we went through a whole bunch of miscarriages and all that kind of stuff. So it was precious to us when our kids were born, and for me, the key for me, and it didn't. I don't know if it made me a good father or not. I was working so hard, but the only thing I wanted to do was create an environment so my kids could succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was just, that's it. I said, listen, you know, I want you to learn how to read and write. And as girls, because I had 2 girls, I don't want you to be afraid of math. And they each had their desks. There was no TVs in the room, nothing. So they were on point from day one. We had all the toys that learned how you read the letters, the colors, all that kind of stuff. And I just wanted them to be able to be just smart kids. And so I created that environment. So that's what I wanted to do. And while we maintained a marriage and all that kind of stuff, I just kind of worked hard. But yeah, the kids were like an important part of the legacy, I would say. Let me just land it there. I mean, it was more because I might have to go hear what Peterson said again for more than that. But for men, it's more like obligation than happiness. It's more like duty than happiness. It was more like a promise and a commitment to the marriage and the family than just happiness. I mean, we find happiness through purpose. That's what I think.
All right. Greg, you got anything on this?
Sorry?
Do you have anything on the video? You want to say anything about it?
I didn't really watch the video, sorry. You really watched the video. I was in my own little world.
It was short. You could play it again.
Really fast again.
That was the guy who was with...
in the West, because we're very immature, we think that the purpose of a marriage is the happiness of the people who are involved in the marriage, the husband and the wife. And that's just not the purpose of marriage at all. The purpose is long-term facilitation of their psychological and spiritual development and the establishment of an environment that's beneficial to children. That's a responsible way of thinking about it. And so we need to have a serious conversation about what that means. In the West.
Yes and no to that last part.
All right, go ahead. Explain.
Well, you've got to love each other and you've got to care for each other and help each other out. If you agree with that. If you've got a hateful relationship, there's no point in bringing kids into the world. You got to make sure you're financially stable first before you even think about having children.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make sure you both deeply, truly want children, and make sure you're both going to be together for the rest of your lives, like me and my missus, right? I'm not financially stable. We were stupid enough to have a child, right? Don't regret having a child, but we were stupid for having him. Yeah. Things didn't go the way we was when we broke up within the marriage, but we did get back together 7 months later anyway. What was that? I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Sorry, my brain's just gone off.
No, I think that was a good point, though, you made.
Well, that was a good point.
Mariana?
Well, I know for being married, you have, of course, they're going to be ups and downs no matter what. But of course, you have to be there for each other no matter what circumstances, whatever life could throw you. Of course, when you're married, you have, if you're, the first thing is to make sure you're financially stable before having kids. Because I know that it was a struggle. Because from the 80s to the early 90s, because I'm basically the oldest of five. And at that time, I remember when my when my sister was born, she was the third child, and my brother, we had to have a homemaker because my mom can't handle it by herself. It was too much for her. And, coming, help with the state. And, we had couple good homemakers, they come and go, just to help with the house, the chores, the food shopping, everything, because it was too much to handle five kids, I will say,
I
for
never
her.
had that upbringing. Sorry, love. I
I'm
never had
sorry.
that. I never
No,
had that upbringing
no.
myself. I
Yeah,
really didn't.
the only downfall I remember, there was one homemaker I'm never gonna forget. Um, she didn't do a good thing. I wish my mom didn't left, and she left her wedding ring in the medicine cabinet, and the homemaker stole my mom's wedding ring. And my mom wanted to confront, but she was afraid. So that was a long time ago. This is like in 88 or 89 at the time. So, but it just yeah, marriage has to be, it has to be like like built on a solid foundation. You have to, enjoy each other's company, but do not get your in-laws or your whatever to step into everybody's business. If you have a problem with your marriage, you need to talk to a therapist, like a professional counselor, whatever the case is, to make it work. If it doesn't work, then call it quits, whatever the case is. I mean, the thing is, I was growing up to see that it was a complete train wreck. So I didn't like what I saw. Like, for my father to, to say something or whatever the case is, or my mom could be stubborn. I don't even know, whatever the case is, but I didn't like the fact that they were, saying bad things in front of me when I was growing up. So, but I observe other couples, and, I love to see that they appreciate each other. I love the fact how they, discipline their kids, but not like very gruesome, not embarrass their kids, like very stern, and, not to embarrass them or belittle them. So that's what, for me, marriage should be, it's like
Equal. Equal.
yeah, equal, yeah. So, because marriage cannot be like, oh, I tell you what this is how this is how this house is run. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to, work together as a team, as
Bond.
one unit. So,
Mhm. Coach?
Yeah. When you were saying about your upbringing and stuff like that, my upbringing was probably worse. My mum and my dad divorced at the age when I was the age of 3, maybe 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And my mum went through multiple partners, and the last 2 partners she had, one of them actually tried to kill her. And the other one was beating the crap out of her and the rest of my family, my younger brother, my older brother, me. And I wish my family, my mum's side of the family and my dad's side of the family would have stepped in, but none of them could be bothered. I really wish that they would. The only person who actually did step in my mum's side of the family was my auntie. But she's no longer with us, sadly. But it's just, my upbringing was just really bad. My mum tried to shove me and my younger brother in social services care multiple times over the years when we were kids. Have you guys ever heard of respite?
No.
You've never heard of respite?
No.
Right. What respite is when the mother or father...
Respite? You say respite?
Yeah, respite, whatever.
Respite, yeah.
What it is.
Yeah, I know what that is.
When the mother needs a break, she relies on social services to step in, to take the kids away for no matter however long the mother needs, the parent needs, so that she can have a break, so she can regain her strength. Right? My mum tried to leave us there. I was brought up in a house in Port Slade. The place was a dump. We had a dog, crazy, might as well. My mum would get drunk every single day. This was when she was single at the time. She would get drunk every single day. Come home from work, there would be one heating source in the entire house, a fireplace, gas fireplace in the living room. And me and my brother would sit upstairs freezing our nuts off. Right? My mum would be drunk in the front room, come home with a bunch of shopping, frozen food and fresh food, and leave it, dump it in the hallway, just leave it there. And it would go off, the dogs that got into it, or it'd go mouldy. My brother would go to his friends, and I started relying on to my neighbour 2 doors down from me, where I used to live. And I actually started calling her mum than my own mother.
Wow.
I classed my best mate's mum. I classed my best mate as my brother, because my younger brother and my older brother are idiots. I had no friends back then apart from them 3, which was my best mate, his mother and his sister. They were the only friends I had in Port Slade when I grew up, and I still call them his mother mum to this day, and that's been over 20 years. That has. All right. My life has been absolutely messed up. At the age, I did the stupidest thing when I was a teenager. You probably saw in the chat, my oldest daughter is 23 years old. All right. I was the age of 16 when she was born. All right. And she was taken away by social services because of my past and my family's past. All right. Plus, they tried to bring up from, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this in here, but when I was about 12 years old, back in 96, I was abused by a stranger. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in here or not. All right. They used that against me. They used my mum's brother against me. They used my mum because she was an alcoholic. They used all my mum's partners because of the past of the school. I used to go to school with scratch marks and bruises all over my face. And I used to miss school. So the social services used all my past and took my child away from me. So
I think I speak for everybody. I'm sorry you went through that, bro.
To be honest, one of the reasons I want to get out of the UK, too many bad memories. I don't want to be here anymore. I would rather be living in America, right? I could get myself a better job. Well, get myself a job, better house, get away from all the bad negativity of the UK. Yes, I know things are bad in the US, but I hate being here. I'm ashamed to be in this country, right? sorry about talking about politics. I just really, really hate this country so much. I want to leave. I want to get away from everyone. I want to take her with me and move to America and start a new life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't blame you after what you just said. All right, let's finish up so we can get our final thoughts. Coach?
Man, how am I supposed to follow up behind that?
Dude, you look like you could bloody eat me. Yeah, you're much bigger than I am.
I don't forget. I don't forgot the question again, man. How
It
am
was
I
a
supposed
video
to
to
follow up
watch.
behind that, man?
It's
No, okay, yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
Sorry.
I think he just speaks from a perspective that when you're going into marriage, man, you have to be committed to it. You have to. There's some compromise to be made on both sides, especially two people who deem that they take care of themselves pretty well, man. Now you're in a space where you got to share things together and mix things together. Your deodorant ain't where you thought you put it, and the toothpaste, I squeeze it from the bottom. My wife just squeezes it in the middle. Now we looking at the toothpaste. I'm like, you ain't put the top on the toothpaste. She's like, I'm rushing, but you've been rushing 5 days in a row. I mean, so just little stuff like that, man. It becomes something that you can laugh at once you work through it. She always talking about stuff when we first met and how excited she still is about it. I'm looking like, but that was years ago. And just things, like I said, man, just in the moment. I mean, I don't know, man. It's one band, one sound, man. It's just embracing the moment. I don't dwell on things that we may have disagreed or didn't agree on. We got through it, and it just makes it more appreciative now. And after coming under YouTube the last 3 years, listening to these folk out here, whether they end up in marriage and it going bad or not, most of them ain't equipped to be in the marriage. Most of them would not be equipped because you're going to change as you get older. Everybody grows differently and you growing at the same time. Like I said, my wife didn't wear glasses. Now we both wearing glasses. And, we ain't running up and down the steps as fast as we used to. And I'm encouraging her, she's encouraging me. So it's just a sacrifice that you have to be built for the task. But I expect that though. It's called marriage for a reason. I learned some things after listening to Brother Bennett and Brother Arpane and just about how to, just live my life with my wife. So I don't know, man. It's unfortunate that people who I guess it's unfortunate to just listen to my man Greg's story that people experience that, and it doesn't. I think they still, and this has nothing to do with you, my man Greg. I work with a lot of young people who have experienced similar and worse, right? But the thing I would always say is the fact that you're here and you've already lived through that bad part, now is a good time to start getting feet on the ground and start moving in what you want. Be selfish for you and appreciate the journey even more because you lived through the worst. So that's all. You hear it now, man. You talking about it. You talking about it to some strangers about all this bad stuff that happened. You can't say that you're a survivor. You can't say that you're a champion, that you were able to accomplish that. Yes, you have. So now here you are. I don't know your age, but if I'm a guess, I'm gonna say 45.
You're taking the piss. I'm only 39.
Okay. Well, if I said that, then I'm looking at the stress you owning and holding on to. You're holding on to the stress. It makes you look older.
Well,
35,
mate, I
I'll
suffer
trade you
with
57
really bad
for
depression.
35.
Yeah, and
Listen, I'll trade you 57 for 35 any day of the week.
I didn't say 35, I said 39.
39. I'll go back and take your 39. You come and get this 57 with high blood pressure and bad back and knees and all of that, and I can start. But think about it. You got 20 years that you can change your whole life.
I plan on doing it, brother.
Based off your purpose.
I plan on doing it. Yeah.
That's all. Just appreciate it, man.
The only problem I've got is my massive depression.
person.
Yeah. And depression being stuck here. I don't go out. She don't go out.
How many times do you think about stuff all day?
All the time. Because I don't
all
get a
day.
break
You
from
holding
it.
on to it. You thinking about it.
I don't get a break from it.
Thinking about it.
I literally don't get a break. Yeah. I'm stuck in this hellhole. New Haven, where I live.
It's all mindset.
New Haven, where I live, is a dump.
What makes it a hellhole?
The people who live in it.
Oh, the people.
The people who actually live in it. They're nothing but depressing. All of them.
But those people are not you.
I've had problems.
They're not you.
I'll tell you now. I spent 5 years because of a guy who I was helping out 5-6 years ago. He was doing a load of move around with a load of different furniture and stuff like that. And I got his old washing machine. Yeah. And the waste pipe hose was like 1 meter too short. And he offered to go and buy one. I said, no, I'll buy it myself. And because he kept on trying to get it, even his landlord, yeah, said it. I was like, I will buy it. I want to buy it. I said no multiple times, even to his face, right? And he went and bought it, and I threw it at his front door. And he decided to become an absolute since then. I spent 5 years not stepping foot out of my flat because of him, right? And everyone around the entire block area took his side. Yeah. So I was stuck in this flat for 5 years without stepping foot out of it. And
my man, you ever go to do you have access to a punching bag?
No, I don't have any room. These flats we live in are tiny.
If you can get access to a punching bag, go find that punching bag, right? And just go whoop that punching bag's ass for about 30 minutes.
Dude, there's no room. I can't get my hands on one.
No. Do you know anyone or a gym? Do y'all have gyms in your where
Yeah,
you
we
are?
do, but it's getting down there. Because as I mentioned earlier, everything's on a hill. Getting back up them is a problem.
You can't walk?
I have trouble with my knees. Yeah, the bones are rubbing against each other behind my kneecaps.
Okay.
And she can't. She gets down the hill. She takes about an hour to get back up because of the hill, because of her heart problems. That's why we don't. One of the reasons we don't go out anymore, anyway. But the guy's moved anyway. He doesn't live here. The other reason I suffer with depression is because no one ever comes and sees me. My family can't be bothered. My friends don't be bothered. She's depressed because all of her friends have abandoned her. She hasn't spoken to any of them in 13 years. Even though I tried.
Greg.
Sorry?
Let me ask you this. The fact that you have that experience, right? Do you think that you can use your experience in your life to motivate others who may be in the same mental state as you?
I don't know if I would have the patience enough.
Why not?
Because I don't have the mental capacity.
But does does talking about those things help you?
I try to take my mind off of it. How I deal with I suffer with, as I said, I suffer with depression, and I take it out on my health. Yeah? Right? If you probably noticed, I don't have a beard. I'm trying to sort my depression out. That's how also I used to shave every single day before I moved here. Yeah? My depression got bad, stopped shaving. When my depression was good, my beard would come off, all that sort of thing. I was drinking. She took me to hospital several years back, rushed me to hospital because I wouldn't stop throwing up. I was drinking 6 bottles a day of 2 liters of Dr. Pepper with no food. Yeah, through depression. Through depression, I have no teeth. I've ripped my teeth out. or they rotted away.
Greg, I don't really know you, right? And this has been a great show, right? I would definitely have to have more communications with you later, right? Yeah, I'll just leave it at that, man. Listen, man, you good, man. You just gotta get out of your head. And I know it's hard because you sort of talk yourself out of stuff. I'm listening to you talking yourself out of it because you mentioned that you depressed 42 times, right? No, it's nothing wrong with it, but the fact that you sort of own that, you own it, you own
I
it.
tried to
Now's
deal
the
with it
time. I'm
in
saying,
building computers, taking them apart, rebuilding them. I deal with my depression that way. Yeah.
do you write? Do
On
you write?
computers, yes. I use
Okay.
Word.
You ever write the story? Could you write the story of what's that? Craig Lucas? Could you write the story?
Write a story of my life?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I actually have learning disabilities.
Well, before we get into our final thoughts, I want to say one thing, Greg. It's up to you to get out of that rut. It's up to you to make it better. I've been down the depression road myself. I have a learning disability. And your only worst enemy is the person you're looking in the mirror.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. All right, Coach, you want to go first in your final thoughts, and then we go around.
Hey man, listen, man. You know, marriage is what it is, man, for you, man. You have to find out what works for you. You can't listen to me, you can't listen to nobody else. You find the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, and you talk about those things, or be intentional about the things you talk about. You know, don't carry a bad day over into another day. Sort of resolve those issues on the spot if you can. Don't assume anything about what somebody else is thinking. Don't allow other people to come into your marriage. It's up to you. I think Brother Arpang mentioned, you know, not even the kids are more important than your marriage. So, you know, with that, man, listen, I'm old. I ain't going back out on the streets. I might move to the basement, but she still can't have no visitors. And, you know, other than that, man, I think we're going to be together till we both leave this place, man. So, yeah, I don't find no cons in it, man. Just when she burned the food sometimes.
My final thoughts. This is a good topic. Um, talking about marriage and everything. The bottom line is, once you marry the person that you love and care, do not have individuals instigating. Doesn't matter if it's in-laws, even friends. Sometimes they even there for you or not there, or whatever what's their best intentions. Um, but marriage, you have to be together, but appreciate each other, and do not get any individuals instigate and just to, I don't know, fracture the marriage. You don't need that. So, that to me is in order to build a solid foundation of, being married, as married couple. And that's all I could say.
Arpang, you're muted, bud. You still muted. Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
There you go.
Can you hear me now? All right. Listen, man, it was a good show. Got a little deep there, but again, man, marriage is a choice. One of the things I tell people about my relationship with my wife, and there's no magic. I think one of the keys is that we want to be together. That's it. I mean, there's no I don't coerce her to be here, and vice versa. We just want to actually hang out and just go ahead and stay committed to the vows. And that's pretty much what we've done. It's not over yet. We got hopefully a few more really good years. And it's kind of funny. We solve problems together. And listen, I got a little public service announcement for all you people out there. Really, if you got land with nothing on it, just land and property, make sure you get that shit insured. You know, a lot of people who own stuff, you know, it's not mandatory that you have it insured, but if they find a dead body on it or somebody gets hurt on your property for trespassing, you could be held liable. So I just figured that out today, man. I don't know if I was just slow to the uptick, but we have some land in North Carolina. We've been paying on it, but it was inherited, but it wasn't insured. Liability insurance is cheap, so make sure you insure your land because you can lose everything with somebody just tripping, even if they're trespassing. You know, you can get in trouble. So I just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
How can I top coaches? How can I top that? That's brilliant. I have nothing to say. I'm literally sorry. I haven't. Have a good life, everybody. That's all I can say.
Yeah, you back at you.
I'm sorry. How can I top coach? Or anyone else?
A little bit on that, but that's okay. Let's do a quick schedule update. Let's get out of here after this because I think most of us has to work. Where are we? Tomorrow night on the Anime Unlocked, the guys are going on Anime 101, the basic of Japanese animation. So tune in for that. And Paul will be off because he's going to be traveling. Coach, myself, and David are going to be doing find the right coach. What is really matters? Coach, trainer, whatever you guys want to call him. And Sean will have a show. I haven't have that posted yet. And on Saturday, we will be having the Mighty Ducks from Puck to Power. And this week on Gray Area, Coach will be my special guest, talking about his military experience and his coaching career. So, except that, guys, that's all we have for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. This was the Spartan SU Network. I am the Spartan. Our sponsor was the Greek Orthodox Church of Strasbourg. Please check them out between the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th, the Greek Festival. And I will be there cooking on the 12th. So, somebody say hi to me. We will be at Comic-Con also on the 11th. Me, Paul, and Black David. So make sure you pop your head in and say hi to me or David or Paul if you are going to be at Comic-Con. Except that, as
hey, where's that at? Where's that at?
It's at Javits Center in Manhattan.
Okay.
I go every year. Paul came with me last year, so I kind of popped the cherry a little bit for him. He was like. He looked around like, what the fuck did you like? He was taken away. Like he goes, Pete, I'm a married man. Like, hey, what happens here stays here. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, bro. But no, he was good. Actually, I was joking aside because he was like people don't understand. Like a lot of these people do dress called cosplay.
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah,
cosplay.
and if you're very executive or held back or very private person, that's gonna throw you right out of the window. But he understood that. He even said, yeah, he's experienced a lot of different stuff with me than he has done before. You're in Queens, right? I'm New York, right? Arpain or Jersey?
New Jersey.
I'm in Jersey.
One of these days we're gonna all meet up and break bread together. We have to make that happen soon.
You got it. Yeah,
so except that, guys, as always, stay fresh, stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.